Welcome to another video from Share Local Codes. In this video, we'll be discussing on and implementing the web security config. The purpose of this class is to configure the security settings for our web application. So this configuration includes defining how the authentication and authorization are handled, specifying which endpoints require authentication, and optimizing the security features. So first of all, we have to first understand these annotations because we'll be using it to create our class. So the bin, the configuration, and the enable web security. So for the bin, when a method is annotated with @bin, it indicates that the method will return an object that will be registered as a bin in the Spring application context. So what the method will return will be registered as a bin in the Spring security context. So the configuration annotation indicates that the class is a configuration class in the Spring context, and it is used to configure and optimize the behavior of the Spring application. The enable web annotation is part of the Spring security and is used to enable the Spring security web security features in the application. So the enable web security annotation is typically used where the configuration is. So these are the methods we're going to be using in this to create this web security config class. So the first one is DAO authentication provider. So the purpose of this provider is traditionally for the username password authentication. So it plays a role in the broader authentication process when combining JWTs with Spring security. So it ensures that the user credentials are valid during the initial login, and after successful login, you can issue a JWT token for subsequent stateless authentication. So what it means here is that this DAO authentication provider is what does the authentication of the user, the username and password authentication. That is done by this DAO authentication provider. And after the user has been authenticated, for subsequent authentications, it will issue the user a JWT token. So during the login process, the user provides their username and password. The DAO authentication provider is responsible for authenticating the user based on these credentials. So as I've said before, the DAO authentication provider is responsible for authenticating or logging in the user based on their credentials, that is their username and password. So these are the two things we're going to set into the DAO authentication provider. We're going to set the user detail service, and then we're going to also set the password encoder too. Okay, so going on, the security filter chain is another method we're going to also use to create this our class. So the security filter chain is a mechanism provided by Spring Security to define a chain of filters that participate in the processing of incoming requests. So each filter in the chain performs a specific task related to security, such as authentication or authorization. So you'll be seeing that in this security filter chain, you'll be seeing different methods like the authentication provider, authorized HTTP request, .csrf. So you'll be seeing all those methods are what we call filters, and these filters are going to be performing specific tasks on the incoming request. So and then as those incoming requests are coming, those filters will be acting on it, and then it will perform those tasks related to authentication or authorization. So you will see the part, especially the part that concerns authorize HTTP request, and then you see the request marshal where you can authorize a user to to use or to be able to access this endpoint also. So you can see that every user can access the sign in and the login page, and but only the authenticated users can access the index or dashboard page. So that's what this security filter chain helps us to do. Then these are different methods or the different filters that are in this security filter chain. So the ones we're going to be using for this project, we're going to be using .csrf. That then we're going to disable this abstract HTTP configurer. So this line disables the cross-site request forgery. So that's the full meaning of CSRF protection. CSRF protection is often disabled in stateless applications. So you will hear me saying stateless applications, stateless applications. Stateless applications are applications that uses this JWT web token authentication. So that's what we call stateless applications. So the next one we're going to use is .authorize HTTP request. So it's actually this .authorize HTTP request method that helps us to give our users the authorization access they need. So if to permit anyone to actually access this other endpoints also. So is within this authorized HTTP request, we're going to say dot request marshal sign in the endpoint, sign in, login, or any other endpoint. We can access that. We can say that all users will be permitted to use this endpoint. But then we can also say again that only these users, maybe based on the role of that user, can access this other endpoint. Or we can say only authenticated users can also access this other endpoint. So it's inside this authorized HTTP request that you can actually state all those authorization as access or as authorization configurations. So that's it here. Then the second one is so under the authorization HTTP request, you use this one. You use the request marshal. So as I've said here, the tool that we're going to be using in this video is the one that will permit all users. So we're saying that all users can or anyone can access these endpoints without needing to be logged in or authenticated. That is the permit all. And then the authenticated, we're saying that only users that are logged in or are authenticated, those are the users that can access this part. That example is like the index page, or what I mean by index page is dashboard. So immediately a user logs in and is taken to the dashboard or to the dashboard, yes. So it's only that user that's authenticated that can go to that dashboard. Any other user that just comes into the site without logging in will not be able to access this endpoint here. Okay, so guys, do you understand this now? So going forward, the other method of filter here is the dot section management. So and it receives this this stateless. So what it's saying here is that this application is stateless. And as I've said before, applications that are stateless are used in a token-based authentication like JWT. So that's what all this method, what this method means here. So that's what, and we're going to be using it in this video here. Then the next one is authentication provider. So is this authentication provider that configures the authentication that it configures the authentication provider by calling the authentication provider method. So you'll be seeing how we'll create this authentication provider method. It's actually calling this authentication provider method is actually calling this DAO authentication provider. So you will see how we're able to use it. As I've said before, I said the DAO authentication provider is used for the traditional username and password authentication. So that is That's what we're going to be doing here. So this authentication provider is actually going to be authenticating the user. That's what it does. Then add filter before. Then this is our JWT authentication filter. So this is here. And then the username, password, authentication filter dot class. So we're going to be saying add this JWT authentication filter before this username, password, authentication filter. So that's what it does here, to add a custom authentication filter, which is this, before the username, password, authentication filter. And then .build, which is the last method we are going to state after we have stated all these different other methods. So .build is the last method we will be using. So what it does is to build the final security filter chain and returns it. So guys, that's what we're going to be doing. So in summary, you will see all these playing, you see all these methods playing together. So in summary, the security filter chain code configures Spring Security as a stateless application with paths or endpoints that require or permit authentication. It disables the CRF protection, sets the section creation policy to stateless, configures authorization rules for specific paths, sets up an authentication provider, and adds a custom authentication filter to the filter chain. So the configuration appears to be designed for an API, that is for a RESTful API with specific paths accessible without authentication and others requiring authentication. So that, guys, this is just a summary of all what we have been seeing over here. So I think with this, we should be able to enter into our code here. So going forward, we're going to start with the web. And inside the config package, we're going to be creating the WebSecurityConfig. That's a class. So public class web config. Then we're going to also add configuration here, stating that this class is going to be used for configurations. And then we're going to also enable web security. So also for configurations too. So next thing we're going to do here is that we're going to inject JWT authentication filter. So if you have not watched the previous video, please, you have to go back and watch the previous video, because that's how you will, that is where we created this class. So in this video, I'm just going to inject it into this web security config, so we're able to use all methods that we created inside here in this class. So we're going to generate constructor. So, and then define this as the auto-wired. Yes. So first thing first, what we're going to do here now is to create a bin of password encoder. So public password encoder. So we're going to now return new bcrypt password encoder. So you can see that this bcrypt password encoder now has been registered as a bin under the Spring security context, security context. So what it means is that anywhere we call this password encoder, the Spring framework is going to take it that we're calling this bcrypt password encoder. So that's what we mean here. Then we'll also create bin for the DAO authentication provider. So this is how we'll do it here. Public authentication provider, then authentication provider. Then you are going to now define the DAO authentication provider here. Yes. So after this, we're going to set the DAO authentication provider with user detail service. So in this detail service, we're going to now load the username using the user service. So so we're going to have to inject user service to be able to use the method in user service. So let's inject user service, user service. That user service implementation. Okay, user service. Okay, what it means that we have not implemented anything in the user service. So let's go there and do it. So you create under the service implementation, you create a user service implementations class. So let's go there, create it first. So public class user service. Remember that this one is annotated with service as the service class, and it's going to be extending the user the details service. So we have to we have to implement, not extend, implement, and then we're going to implement this method, the load user by username. So first thing first, we have to um, inject our repository so that we can be able to access the database. And then we're going to also alternate. We're going to also auto-wire it, yes, auto-wired, right? So now load user by username. What are we going to return? We're going to return the username. We're going to return user repository dot find find let's see. We're going to return the user repository dot find by username. So username. And then we're going to create this method inside the repository. So there's it here. So in this case now, because we're finding by username, there will surely be a time that you might not see that username in the database there. So you have to use the optional here. So optional means that um, it returns a username and it also returns null value. So in the times it returns null value, you should be able to handle it with a username not found exception. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to use the optional. So just like this. And then going back to the service implementation, you see that it's giving us spread because the required type is user details, but we provided optional. So we have to make this our statement here also have this thing in case there's a null value. So you should be able to handle that. So this is the so we are going to return username not found exception. The username not found. Okay, insert new. Okay, so the new username not found exception. So guys, that is how the load user by username is configured. So going back to the web security config. Let's see service implementation. So this is it here. Then coming back here, user service, that is this user service dot. You see, first we have to inject this user service implementation into this class. So user service, and then this one is also this dot user service equal to user service. Okay, so with this, we have to wire this user service into this class. So we can now be able to access the information that is in the user service implementation. So we're going to just put username there. So going we're going to set the password encoder, which we have already defined by this bin here. So immediately we call this password encoder method here. It returns this bcrypt for us. So we're going to use it here. And then the last thing to do is we're going to now return the DAO authentication provider. So guys, that's how to configure this. Then the next thing is to configure the security filter chain. So that's public security filter chain. Yes. Then HTTP security. So this is the method name. And it's going to be collecting the HTTP request. HTTP security. And this. Okay, import this class. Okay. So now we're going to be return the HTTP security. Then dot. So the first filter we're going to be putting here is CSRF and adapter abstract HTTP configurer. We're going to disable it. Disable. And then we're going to also using the authorize HTTP requests. We're going to be setting the endpoints that we need our users to be able to access, and the ones that our users will not be able to access, only the authenticated users. So HTTP requests. So HTTP requests dot request matcher, and then we're saying that only the ones that have this endpoint will be able to access it, and then the ones that have this endpoint too, are going to be able to access it. Dot permits all. Okay. Dot permits all. So these endpoints will be able to add exception to. So this method is supposed to throw an exception. Yes. So we're saying that all users will be able to access the API sign up and the login endpoint. And then we're going to also give another endpoint that says that only API, let's say index. Or instead, let us use dashboard. That is more explanatory. So dashboard, and we're saying that only authenticated users will be able to access the dashboard. Okay, so the next one is section management. So section management. Yes. So section management dot section creation policy. Then we're going to set it as stateless. So saying that the application is actually a stateless application. Then dots. We're going to next authentication provider should be set as this authentication provider over here. So it means that as this is a bin, so it means that if you call this authentication provider, the Spring framework is going to return this. And this is actually registered as a bin in the Spring security. So anywhere you call this this method is going to register we're going to return this because this is what the is registered as the bin in this application. So we're going to just put it here. And then we add filter before. So add filter before. So what is going to be here is actually going to be this JWT authentication filter. So this, then the username password authentication filter the class. Then finally, we're going to now use the build to be able to build and return the security filter chain. So with this, guys, we're through with configuring this web security config. So yeah, we're going to use update here. Okay. So the next thing to do is we're going to go into this endpoint. We're going to create this endpoint. So the sign up and the login endpoint, and also the dashboard endpoint. And we can create that in the user controller class. So under the controller package, we go to user controller. So I just say public class user controller. Then we annotate this with the REST, as we're creating REST API endpoints. So then we're going to annotate this with also the request mapping. We give all mappings a base URL of an API. And then coming here, we're going to inject the user service implementation class. Okay. Then let's auto-wire it. Okay. Auto-wired. Sorry. Auto-wired. Okay, so I'll be able to auto-wire this instance of this class into this user controller class. So going forward, we're going to set post mapping of for the sign up, because sign up before login. So sign up. Now you will know that in this when using REST controllers, because we're not going to be getting PGs, we're not going to be getting any template or models. So we're not going to be using get mapping most of the time. We're going to just be getting using post mapping, just post mapping, because we're not getting any template out. Okay, so postman, post mapping public. So in this case, we're returning a response entity. Okay, so coming back, response entity here is actually saying that we want to be able to return a status code, a HTTP status code, something like 200, which is okay, 201, which is created, and maybe 404, then not found, and others. So we're going to be able to use the response entity. So, and then the user DTO here is that for security reasons, you are not supposed to return the user objects to the viewer or to the person because of security. So you are going to return the DTO instead. So that's why we're returning DTO. So let's say that sign up and then sign up. So this sign up here is we're going to use the request body. So request body, we're going to use user DTO. So request body. Okay. So here we're going to save the user. So user equal to user service. So we're going to call save user. in the user service implementation, I'm going to save the user DTO. So it's going to take in the user DTO and return users, right? So let's import this class. And then we're going to create this method in the user service implementation. So that's it here. So first thing first, we have to, using our object mapper, our JSON and Jackson object mapper, we're going to convert the values of this user DTO to users. So let's do it there. So that's users user equal to. So this my users is actually from the class here, and then equal to new object mapper. Then dot convert value. So we're converting value from a user DTO to a users dot class. And then with this, we can now set our password. Set password to the password. So we're going to actually inject the password to be able to use it inside here. So we're going to inject password encoder. Okay, so just like this. So we'll be able to use this password encoder inside here. Dot encode. So we're encoding what is coming from the user DTO. User DTO dot get password. And then we're going to also set the row of the user. So the user row, and that's going to be row dot row user. And then finally, we will return the user back to the controller. But before that, we're going to have to save that user first. So we're going to save the user. Okay, so just like this. And then going back to the user controller, so we'll be able to save the user now. So because of security reasons, as I said before, we're going to convert our user back to user DTO, so it can be viewed to the client there. So that's what I'm going to do here. So user DTO equal to new objects mapper dot convert value. So we're converting from the user here to a user DTO class. And then we're going to now return the response entity. And then you'll see that is the user DTO that's going to be returned. So we don't want the user information to be returned. So we want it to go through a user DTO. So just for security reasons. And then we're going to set the HTTP status as created. So that user has been created in the database there. Then the next endpoint we're going to create is for this login page. For the login. So that is login. Public response. Now, here, response entity, but we're going to return a string. Now, this string is the JWT token. So we want that after we have logged in a user, that a string should be generated for that user. A JWT token should be generated for that user. So that's the token as string that we're going to return back. So we're going to also using the request body, so that we'll get our information as a JSON format. So user DTO So everything must pass through a user detail. It cannot go through the normal class, the normal user class. So first thing up, we are going to load the user by username. We're going to get, because at this point, at this login stage, it's already said that the user should have been signed in already and saved into the database. So what we are doing here is that we're going to load that user from the database back with all his information back. So that is user details, we save it in user, equal to user service. So calling user service to for this method load user by username, and then we're going to be using the user detail dot get username. Then we're going to say if password. So we need the password. We need password, yeah. Password encoder. We'll also inject it here. Password encoder. Okay. So we need to also call the password encoder here. So we're saying if the password encoder matches the password coming from the user, that's the one that the user is typing in, and if that password matches the one that is coming in and also the one that's coming from the database, so user dot get password. If it matches, that means the user is confirmed as a authenticated user in that system. Then we're going to now create a token for that user. So I'll say Jwt token equal to, now to call this token, we have to call the Jwt utils, because that is where we created our create Jwt method. So to call the Jwt utils, we have to inject that Jwt utils class into this our class here. So we're going to come here and add it. So private Jwt utils. So also, if you haven't watched the previous videos, you won't understand what I've done here. So the Jwt utils is a class which we created here. So what it does is it has a method create Jwt Jwt. So this method is what creates the token for us. So please go back to the previous video to understand what we have done here. So we're going to import this class, and then calling the Jwt utils, we can be able to use call the create Jwt method here. Let's apply user. So we're not saying that if the password matches the one that the user types in and the one that is from database, that it should create a token for that particular user. That is this user here. And then we also return the token back to our API client, that is Postman. And then we're going to say HTTP status of created. So it means that the user has been authenticated at this point and has been given and a token has been assigned to that user with his details into that token. And then else, if the password is not if the password does not match, if they are not equal, then we just have to return a responsibility of saying that status code of bad request. So we can also say here that we can also give a message here that the username and the password is incorrect. So it's wise to use username and password, even though we know that it's just the password that is not correct here. We cannot come here and say password not correct or password is incorrect only. We have to use username and password is incorrect so that uh, if someone wants to attack our system, they won't be narrowed down to just doing that is the password that they have to attack. Now they have to we have to give them no clue at all. So that we need to state it here that the username and password is both incorrect. So at this point, we have created the post mapping for the sign up and the one to log in the user. And as it logs in the user, it creates a JWT token for that user. So what else we're going to do is also for our for the dashboard, we need the get mapping. So we're going to use a get mapping here because we really want to be able to, after the user has been authenticated and has been logged into the system, we just want to display a text. So it's not a page. This is not a page. We're just displaying a text to the user, back to the user. So this is what I'm going to do here. So the dashboard, and then I will say that public. Oh, sorry. I think I'm outside. I'm inside this if statement. So this is the end of this one here. So I'll come here. Yeah, I say public. We just want to display a text, which is a string. And then I'm going to say dashboard. Let me say dashboard. So we're not going to receive anything. And then we'll just return welcome to your dashboard. Okay. So we just want to be able to, after the user as remember when we did in the web security config, we say that any user that is authenticated or has logged in will be able to access this endpoint. So in this endpoint, we are just saying that let's just return a string, and in the string is just welcome to your dashboard. So that's that is what this mapping is. This endpoint is actually doing. So at this point, we have been we are through with this. Okay, we are through with this user controller. But this JWT util is saying that the private field is never assigned. So what it means is that we have to add it to our constructor parameter. So we just click on add, and you can see here that it has added here and also here. So next thing we're going to also do, just add lazy to this user service implementation here. So guys, that is it. Also, this is our endpoint here. You can see that there's no API in front of it, because as we have stated here. But this /API is the base URL, which is defined by the request mapping over here. So you can see the /API here. So when we use @request mapping, it means that all other endpoints, we have their base URL to what is here. So it's going to be, if you want to access this endpoint, you're going to use /API/signup. If you want to access login, you're going to use /API/login, and also the same for the dashboard /API//dashboard. Okay, guys, I think that should be all. We are going to create this. The user controller is also okay. So the DTO, this is what is in DTO class here. DTO class here. So the username, first name, last name, email, and password is what's in the user class, in the user DTO. And then for the users, is the same thing that is there too. But in this case, there's a user row there's a user role to this to the user class, and also an ID, because this user is going to be sent to the database, so it needs an ID. Also, we are also implementing the user details in the users class here, just like we implemented the user details service in the user service implementation. And after we implemented this, it made us to override the load user by username, which will later return this. So in the user class too, we implemented the user details, which it will represent all this information, user information. So after implementing this, it actually made us to override all these methods here. So inside this here, inside the grant authority, or the authorities, that's the role which we give to this user. So we are saying that the rules are you return the array list, taking the collection or singleton of the rows. So we're going to create an instance of simple granted authority, and in this we're going to say this.userRow.name. So name here is just saying all the names of row in the row enum here. So you can see that we created a row enum under the enum package. So inside the row enum, we have the row user and the row admin. So these are the two rows that we'll have. So we're going to put those two rows in our array list here, and then they're going to be sent into the get authorities. So anytime you call get authorities, you're going to get an array list of these rows. So next, we stated that is account non-expired. So the account is not expired, so we return true. The account non-locked, we return true. Credentials not expired, return true. And then is enabled, we also return true. And then we're using this as JSON ignore here because during the time when we're going to be signing in our user, remember I told you we're going to be using the user DTO to collect this information from the user. So at that point, we are not going to be stating all these methods during that time. So what we are saying here is ignore JSON ignore these methods. So that's what it means. So these methods are not available in our user DTO. And as I said before, to collect this information in the Postman. So let me just open Postman here. So you see what I'm saying. You see that is a JSON. You're going to collect this information in a JSON format. So let me just open this. Okay, so this is my collection here. So going to let me just go to creating post now. Let me just use this example, creating post. So you see here, body, to be able to post or to create this post, we have to state our information in a JSON format here. So you can see the JSON format here. So body, raw, then JSON. So these are different formats, but we're going to use JSON. So this is JSON format here. So to be able to post or to save or to this endpoint, even when we're going to sign in or log in a user, we're going to be using this JSON format here to be able to collect our user information. So this is what I mean by JSON. So when I say JSON ignore, so it means that we're going to ignore those methods because we're not going to be we're not going to be we're not going to be using it in Postman. We're not going to come here and say that it's enabled true, or is the account not expired, true or false here. So we're not going to be using that here. So we're just going to use at JSON ignore. So if you remove this at JSON ignore, you will actually get an error. Yeah. So in the next video, I will be showing you how to run this code, and then we'll see if we'll get any errors, and then how to really solve any error which we will get from this. And also in the coming videos, we are going to also using the OAuth. So we're going to be able to sign in with Google or Facebook or any of those that with their API. So, but for now, in the next video, we'll be able to create our JWT for the user. So if a user registers and then sign in, so anytime the user signs in or log in to our application, a token is a token. So this token is always regenerated. So it's not the same for every time. So a new token will be generated for that user, and using the authorization of the filters here, that user can know the endpoints which is permitted to him, or the ones that only the authenticated users can access. So guys, so that's it for now. In the next video, we're going to be talking how we're going to be running our code to see what errors we get, and be able to and trying our best to solve it. And then also, if it runs, we're going to show you how it displays in the Postman. So thank you guys for this class. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment.